Is BNB the next FTT? AKA, is it headed to zero? That's the billion-dollar question on my mind. And to find out, let's dissect Binance from top to bottom to see if there's any truth to the FUD. Starting with their BNB token. One big concern is that Binance has taken out loans backed by BNB, much like FTX and Alameda did with FTT. But according to CZ, they have not. After FTX collapsed, he tweeted that crypto businesses should not borrow money at all, let alone use their own tokens as collateral. He said that Binance hasn't taken out any loans and that we should ask around if we don't believe him. Now, unfortunately, asking around isn't a good way to verify his claims, which is why everyone wants them to get a full audit. But even if we give them the benefit of the doubt, there's still something strange going on with BNB. If we look at the charts, BNB is pretty much the only major coin that's been making new all-time highs against Bitcoin in 2022. I mean, back when everyone was buying BNB to use their launchpad, that price action made sense. But now, there's no good explanation for where the demand is coming from. Some people speculate that Binance is currently defending the floor price of BNB after pumping it up artificially in 2021. I mean, it's not illegal for an exchange to buy their own token, but FTX and Alameda were doing the exact same thing to prevent their FTT-backed loans from getting liquidated. So it does make me wonder if something similar is going on with Binance and BNB. Now, to be fair, BNB is not the same as FTT. It's used to power an entire ecosystem on the BNB chain, while FTT was just an exchange coin. So in that sense, BNB already has way more utility than FTT ever had. But even if BNB is okay and there's nothing shady going on there, it still relies on Binance, the company, at the end of the day. So let's turn our attention to the company and see how solid it is, because if it were to fall, then so would BNB. And that's why we gotta start with one simple question. Do they have all their customers' funds? Because after FTX collapsed, a lot of exchanges scrambled to get proof of reserves to make their customers feel safe. Binance did as well, and they decided to go with a firm called Mazars for their audit. I put quotes there because it wasn't a real audit. It was an agreed upon procedures attestation. An AUP is just where the auditor performs specific procedures that their client requests and then reports those findings. You might have seen some buzz on Twitter about Binance moving an insane amount of Bitcoin between two wallets. Well, that was one of the procedures they did for their AUP. But moving Bitcoin is pretty much all they did though. So we weren't able to learn anything new about their liabilities or other important details regarding their solvency. And to make matters worse, Mazars recently deleted their crypto attestations and announced they would stop serving crypto companies altogether because of the risk to their reputation. This has increased the pressure on Binance to get an audit done by Big Four accounting firm. But when CNBC interviewed CZ,
if you could get a Big Four auditor to say that, if you're saying that some of them don't want to work with you, that raises questions too.
Actually, many of them don't even know how to audit crypto exchanges.
That definitely is not true though, because Coinbase is audited by Deloitte, which is one of the Big Four. So yeah, that's a bad excuse by CZ. Now, to be fair, Binance has already done way more than FTX ever did. I doubt FTX would have even passed an attestation by Mazars, so at least Binance proved that they have enough Bitcoin to cover customer deposits. And speaking of customer deposits, I found something quite concerning about how Binance handles them. Conor Grogan posted some on-chain evidence that Binance is storing their customer funds in the same wallets as their corporate funds. This is a big red flag because it means that they're commingling funds, perhaps in the same way that FTX was? But maybe there's an innocent explanation here, because CZ mentioned that they use an off-chain ledger to keep track of each customer's account. So they could hold funds together, but keep customer and corporate funds separate on their private ledger. I mean, that's not ideal in terms of transparency, but it does mean that we cannot say for sure that they're solvent or insolvent based on the on-chain data. Either way, their commingling still concerns me, because it means that customer assets are not legally separated from their corporate assets. So if Binance collapses like FTX did, everyone's assets would be locked up in bankruptcy court for years to come. By the way, this is an issue for a lot of crypto exchanges, not just Binance, but it's still important to keep in mind that your deposits are not insured if Binance falls. Now, besides pure solvency, another big concern with Binance, the company, is all the regulatory heat they are feeling. For example, there's an ongoing investigation by the US Department of Justice into Binance for processing billions of dollars worth of illicit funds. Now, that sounds really egregious, but actually, if you compare that to traditional finance, it's really not that bad. Denmark's largest bank, Danske Bank, was fined $2 billion by the DOJ for helping foreign residents launder a huge amount of money. And also, in recent years, Binance has cleaned up their act. They now require all users to pass KYC checks, so non-compliance is becoming less of an issue. And the DOJ's investigation seems to have stalled because their prosecutors disagree on whether or not to bring charges against Binance. That hasn't stopped Binance from hitting back at all the media outlets reporting on the DOJ investigation though. When Reuters published an article about it, Binance replied saying that they have around 300 investigators working in their financial crimes team and that they have a great track record working with law enforcement from around the world. But that Reuters article goes beyond just that singular investigation though. It also points out Binance's long history of evading regulators. In one of their reports, they said that the only reason CZ made Binance US was to draw regulators' attention away from the main exchange, even though it was still controlling things from behind the scene. Based on the evidence I've seen, it does look like Binance International and Binance US are much more closely tied than what CZ claims. So the key point to remember is that if Binance.com ever collapses, then Binance US users would likely be screwed too, just like how FTX US was placed into bankruptcy, even though SBF maintained that they were separate and solvent. Reuters also mentioned several other examples where Binance has skirted regulations in the past. I'm not going to bore you with all the details though, but why am I even mentioning this? Well, if we're going to evaluate whether Binance could collapse like FTX, it's important to understand the nature of their strained relationship with regulators. But on the other hand, SBF was super cozy with regulators and they still collapsed. So maybe we can't glean too much from Binance's relationship with regulators, or lack thereof. Either way, regulators could make life really difficult for Binance in the future, so just keep that in mind. Now, there's still one key point we're missing when it comes to evaluating Binance, and that'd be their super opaque company structure. Like, where exactly are they based? What's the ownership structure? And the main jurisdiction? A lot of people have tried to answer those questions for years, and we still don't know the definitive answers. But thanks to some reporting by Bloomberg, we at least know some details. We know that a Cayman Islands company called Binance Holdings owns their trademarks, and a British Virgin Islands company called Binance Capital Management acquired CoinMarketCap back in 2020. And then you have Binance operations all over Malta, Singapore, Ireland, France, and on and on. But what do all those subsidiaries have in common? Well, behind all of them is a singular person. He does own up to 90% of Binance after all. Now, what worries me the most though is that we don't know where the main exchange is registered or which jurisdiction can regulate them. A lot of countries where Binance has been based in the past have said that Binance isn't even licensed there or allowed to operate. CZ himself said that he thinks of Binance as a decentralized organization rather than a traditional company, and that's why they don't have the best track record when it comes to regulation. But that also means that no jurisdiction is going to save you in case Binance. Is BNB going to collapse like FTT? Well, my gut feeling is no. They are not in the same situation after all. And recently, Binance withstood a bank run to the tune of billions of dollars, and they're still standing. So that does give me more confidence that they are solvent. But at the end of the day, if they want to quiet the critics, they really need to get a legit audit. And I think the only thing that could bring them down is if regulators do the unexpected and bring the ban hammer down on them. That's my take. But what do you think? Let me know your predictions about Binance and BNB in the comments below.